to win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game, honestly. And that is how you lose the game.
Yes. Welcome into Week 2 recap of the NFL season for 2025. A lot of fun and crazy stuff happened in the NFL this week, and let's work through each game one by one. Starting with the Packers versus the Commanders, where the Packers absolutely laid the beat down this week on the Washington Commanders and limited their offense big time. Because of the Austin Eckler injury, an interesting acquisition to note is Chase Edmonds, who did really amazing with the Arizona Cardinals when Cliff Kingsbury was a part of their team as head coach. And now since Cliff is the offensive coordinator of the Commanders, it's interesting to keep an eye on if he ends up having a role in the offense in the future. Let me tell you who didn't have a role in the Washington Commanders offense this week. Everybody on the Washington Commanders offense, apparently. Jaden Daniels did go 24 of 42 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it's almost a sure bet that this Packers defense in the first 2 weeks so far are proving that they are going to stop anyone's rushing game. Jaden Daniels was the top rusher for the Washington Commanders today, with only 17 yards rushing. That's almost just as bad as last week's David Montgomery being the leading rusher with only 25 yards for the Lions. The leading receiver was my fantasy tight end Zach Ertz. The only problem was he was on the bench the whole game for me, looking real fancy on that bench. All the while my fantasy opponent this week had Tucker Kraft, who ran way up and down the field on the Commanders all game long and is looking like the favorite target of Jordan Love. He had 6 receptions for 124 yards and a touchdown. This will probably be his best game of the season, of course, when he goes up against my fantasy team. It wouldn't have mattered though, because I may have the worst fantasy team in history. I'll make a video on it if you guys have any interest in seeing how horrible my team is. Let me know in the comments below. The Packers rolled to a pretty decisive 27-18 victory. Moving on to what I am considering the absolute game of the week, the Giants versus the Cowboys, in a game that I thought was not even going to be close. Serves me right actually thinking the Cowboys would do something that I think they're going to do for once, but anytime I need the Cowboys to do something specifically, they always fail me. Why do you always fail me, Cowboys? And boy was I wrong apparently about Russell Wilson. I said any game that he plays as the starting quarterback for the Giants, you can dang sure pick the other team to win, and while I ended up being correct in that assumption, man was I sweating it out. Russell Wilson went absolutely off in this game. He threw for a massive total of 450 yards. He went 30 of 41 and he threw 3 touchdowns, with only the lone interception being at the most important time of the game in overtime, when instead of throwing away the game because of fatigue at the end of the game, maybe you just allow the game to be a tie. I don't know, soccer fans are really into ties. Maybe we could try it out here in the NFL. But forget that, we don't want a tie in the NFL, and Brandon Aubrey made sure that he kicked the game-winning field goal to secure the Cowboys' victory in Week 2 to get them their first win of the season. Even though Russell Wilson threw for half of 1,000 yards, they still ended up losing the game. This was a wild one. This is absolutely my game of the week, and the final in OT was Cowboys 40, Giants 37. I was so wrong about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this year. I thought they were going to be one of the top 3 defenses in the NFL, but through the first 2 weeks of the season, they've allowed over 30 points each against the Jets and the Seahawks of all teams. And they made a Seahawks offense that struggled against the 49ers last week with Sam Darnold look like they were completely opposite this week. What was it, opposite day? Not to mention Aaron Rodgers struggled a little bit, throwing 2 picks in today's game. Probably not the way he had envisioned the home opener this season. Just take a look at what he had to say after the game.
Our coach is worse than the Jets coach I had last year. Mike Tomlin, you are a donkey. You can pack your bags too, buddy. Of course, who can forget our awful O-line? I don't know if that was a football game or a Diddy party with the way I got pounded tonight.
I'm just kidding. That's an AI video. He never said that. How many of you actually believed that was a real video? I hope none of you. The Steelers will definitely have to bounce back, and they're probably going to have to rely on a heavy offensive performance this year if the defense is going to allow 30 plus points a game. And so far this season, the Steelers defense is ranked 29th in points allowed per game and average yards per play. Seahawks won 31-17. The Rams and the Titans played a pretty close game until the third quarter, where the Titans decided that they didn't want to score any more points, but they sure did tease their fans, making them think that they might be able to pull the victory out until the Rams decided to pull away late in the game. As an Arizona fan myself, I can't stand teams from LA, but it's hard for me to think that the Rams are a team from LA, because every time I think of them, I just think of them being the St. Louis Rams. So I guess my hatred for the Rams hasn't fully set in yet, unlike my hatred for the Dodgers, which knows no end. But please, for the the love of everything that's good in this universe, can the Rams not win the NFC West this year? I'm tired of the Dodgers winning the NL West in baseball every single year. I'm tired of the Rams having good playoff runs, either eliminating the Cardinals in embarrassing fashion in the wild card game, or going off to the Super Bowl, or winning the Super Bowl. I'm really tired of all of those things. I'm so sorry, Titans fans. I told you that Cam Ward looked pretty good and that the Titans had a chance to be decent this year. I'm starting to lose a little bit of that hope because they lost to the Rams and they had a full opportunity to win this week. They actually had the lead in the third quarter and they couldn't capitalize on that, and the Rams pick up the 33-19 victory in a game that Titans will probably be wanting back. Now, another game that I was completely wrong about this week, at least as far as the spread goes. Now, I knew that the Bills were going to win, but I had a little bit more faith that the Jets would score more points. Of course, Justin Fields getting injured did not help that at all, as he threw for under 30 passing yards. But don't worry, Tyrod Taylor will come in to save the day, Jets fans. Oh wait, never mind, he only threw for 56 yards. Josh Allen didn't have that great of a game either. He only threw for 148 yards, but he didn't need to have a good game because James Cook on 21 carries went 132 yards with 2 touchdowns. As the Bills cruise to a 30-10 victory, if Fields doesn't practice tomorrow, the next day he'll probably be ruled out at least 1 week to be safe because you don't want to mess around with concussions. And I hope every team in the NFL is smarter than the Dolphins, who keep rushing Tua Tagovailoa out there after every single concussion he's got going on.
Doesn't look good, Coach.
Can he play?
He's in a coma.
Answer my question. Can he play?
I don't even think he can breathe. We got to get him to a hospital immediately.
You listen to me right now. I don't care what you have to do. Reggie Ray stays in the game.
Speaking of Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins, they lost again this week in a game that's closer than I expected, but the Patriots ended up winning 33-27 in a game where the offenses looked pretty good. Drake May had a pretty decent game, 19 of 23 for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tua Tagovailoa found his best receiver this week. Tyreek Hill got 6 receptions for 109 yards. And even with all that, for some reason, Tyreek Hill still found a way to pout all week long on the field. Notice him here on the pass that went way over his head late in the game, in which he pouted as he walked off the field and asked for a substitution. Tyreek Hill's been quite a diva wide receiver this year so far, and he's done a lot of whining. And for that, Tyreek Hill, you've earned the second week award for Clown of the Week. The award we hand out to the Clown of the Week for being a goofball, doing something stupid, or just straight up annoying me. Last week's winner was Jalen Carter for spitting on Dak Prescott, and this week it's Tyreek Hill for never stopping being a diva and thinking he's the best thing since sliced bread. Coach Mike McDaniels, tell me what you think about how you guys played today.
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game.
Oh, I agree. You have to win the game in order to win the game, and if you don't play football that wins the game, you lose the game. Speaking of people who are not having a good time right now, Bengals fans aren't having a good time right now. Because even though their team came back to win against the Jaguars this week, Joe Burrow is going to miss an extended period of time of maybe 3 months at least because of a grade 3 turf toe injury. Now, what is turf toe for those of you out there? Well, I am a physical therapist assistant, so let me tell you. Turf toe is a sprain of the ligaments in the big toe's main joint, the metatarsophalangeal or MTP joint, that occurs when the toe is forced upwards. And they said that he had a grade 3 injury, which is the most severe of the injuries, which means he had a complete separation, which may need to be surgically repaired and is incredibly painful. Now that you learned something on my YouTube video today, let's get into the action between the Bengals and Jaguars, where Jake Browning actually came in and had a fantastic game, as he did last time he had to replace Joe Burrow as well, and led the Bengals to a come-from-behind victory against the Jaguars, who look impressively unimpressive so far this season. They only beat the Panthers in week 1, and then they gave up that lead to Browning and the Bengals late in the game. Trevor Lawrence did throw 271 yards for 3 touchdowns, but he did have 2 costly interceptions receptions in the game, and Travis Etienne Jr. did go for 71 yards on 14 carries, but that was not enough for Jake Browning and the Bengals. Browning going 21 of 32 for 241 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions that didn't come back to bite him in the butt. The Bengals pull off a crazy 31-27 victory, and now the season hinges on whether Browning can be the quarterback that the Bengals need him to be or not. The 49ers proved me wrong this week because even though everyone said they had no depth and if anyone got hurt they were done for, Mac Jones proved me wrong. He went absolutely wild with 279 yards passing through the air, 3 TDs, and no turnovers. Whereas on the other side, Spencer Rattler rattled off 207 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is pretty impressive honestly. Alvin Kamara with 99 yards on the ground definitely helped as well. But again this week for the Saints, they might as well be called the Aints because they ain't able to catch up to a lead late in the game. I will say, again, I am pretty surprised with how well Rattler is playing this year so far. He looks poised under pressure, he's able to escape the pocket when he needs to and find his open receivers, and he was this close to beating the Cardinals last week and this close this week to beating the 49ers. So while you guys may not make the playoffs this year, maybe this will be a good year for Rattler to develop into a quarterback that you guys actually want to see in future years. Either way, this week Mac Jones and the 49ers won 26-21 over the Saints. The Browns are who we thought they were. This game was actually pretty close through the first half, and then in the second half things kind of fell off the rails for the Browns. Quinshon Judkins looks like he may be the running back of the future for the Browns as long as he stays out of prison. And on the other side of the ball, a very surprising showing for Derrick Henry as he only had 23 yards on 11 carries. This is the one thing everyone needs to understand about Derrick Henry, and I've always seen this. It's in my research, it's in my analysis of every single time I've watched him play football. If you let him get past the line of scrimmage, he is nearly impossible to stop, because a man that big and that fast is like trying to stop a monster truck while it's barreling down straight at you. But when he gets hit at the line of scrimmage, he's pretty beatable because it takes him a couple seconds to get that speed moving downhill. So the Browns had a good plan of attack against him this week. Unfortunately for them, Lamar Jackson was the quarterback they had to go up against as well. When you've got the power and speed combo that the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson and his elusiveness and speed, and Derrick Henry with his running ability and his power, it's really hard to prepare for something like that. The Ravens beat the Browns 41-17 in what looks like a more decisive win than it actually was this week, but no, it was still pretty decisive. My prediction this week for the Lions was that they would be out for blood after getting beat by the Packers last week, and the Bears were the perfect team for them to bounce back against, as they absolutely bullied them all game. They score a massive 52-21 win over the Bears this week, who looked completely outmatched this week against the Lions. Jared Goff went Jared off this week as he scored 5 touchdowns, 3 of which went to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both scored touchdowns in this game, bouncing back from the horrible week 1 that they had. Gibbs had 94 yards on the ground and Montgomery had 57 yards on the ground. How you feeling, Bears fans? The Bears are who we thought they were.
We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were.
The most controversial game of the week this week was by far the Broncos versus the Colts, as the Colts ended up winning on a technicality of the leverage penalty in the NFL, just because a Broncos player decided to jump over the O-line. Apparently that's not allowed. I've seen much worse leverage penalties in my time, and after the missed 60-yard field goal by Schrader, the new kicker from Notre Dame, he nailed the 45-yarder to win the game in what was a roller coaster of emotion for Broncos and Colts fans this week. Daniel Jones, or what everyone is calling him now, Indiana Jones for some reason, I guess because they play in Indiana and his last name is Jones. Get more creative, guys. Threw for 316 yards and a touchdown.
Oh my god, is he nuts?
You know nuts. He's crazy.
All around. Prepare to meet Khalid in hell.
That's in comparison to Bo Nix's 206 yards for 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. This was a good game, but at the end of the game, Danny Dimes, otherwise known as Danny Primetimes, that's the nickname I use for him and I'm sticking with it. Danny Primetimes led his team to victory this week, and let me tell you that Spencer Schrader, I believe that's his name, I hope I got it right, nailed every single kick that he made that game, albeit he missed the 60-yard one that ended up being penalized and he got another chance on that game-winning kick, and he is the kicker on my my fantasy team, and I would be really happy about the 18 points he got for me this week if it weren't for the fact that he was the leading scorer on my fantasy team this week. When you have Omarion, Hampton, Justin Jefferson, and Drake London all in the same season of joy so far, you can't help but do anything but cry a little in the shower. But heck, crying's good for you sometimes, so I'm just gonna take this year as a very therapeutic year to think about myself and my inner demons that I'm gonna have to fight all the way until next fantasy season when I can right the wrongs of this year. The Colts beat the Broncos 29-28. No matter how many times I say it in my head, it always ends up being true. Why can't the Arizona Cardinals just close out a game strong? Last week the Cardinals almost let the Saints come back and beat them. This week the Arizona Cardinals almost let the Panthers come back and beat them. These are two of the worst teams in the NFL, and I'm assuming this year is going to be no different for either of those teams. But after a good start in both weeks of the season so far, in the first half of the games, in the second half of those games, the Cardinals decided to disappear. It's almost like they get complacent, thinking that the game is over and that they've sealed the victory. And this is on both sides of the ball, not just the offense or the defense. Both sides of the ball did really bad in the second half. Taking a look at the box score, the Cardinals only scored 7 points in the second half, and that was in the third quarter, whereas the Panthers had 19 points in the second half. Also, if it weren't for the first defensive touchdown of the game for the Cardinals, the Panthers offense actually scored more points than the Cardinals offense by a score of 22-20. So without the defensive score, the Panthers would have won this game. You can check out my Cardinals recap as a Cardinals fan that I am. I made a video about it on my channel. When you're done with this video, go check out my Cardinals recap for week 2 of the NFL season, where I talk about more of that stuff in depth. Either way, my Cardinals didn't cover the spread somehow against the Panthers this week of 6.5 points, but they did hold off the Panthers' comeback and ended up winning 27-22. If you guys don't play good next week, the 49ers are going to dog walk you. That's all I'm going to say. One of my semi-bold predictions going into this week was that the Eagles would go ahead and beat the Chiefs just like they did in the Super Bowl last year and put the Chiefs to an 0-2 start. And the mighty Chiefs are now 0-2 at the bottom of the AFC West. Granted, their start was tougher than a lot of teams starting against the Chargers and the Eagles. I'm going to go out and say it, even though the Eagles won, I don't think Jalen Hurts has looked very good so far this season. Is that a hot take to say? I don't think he's looked very good this year so far. But you know who's looked even worse? The Chiefs. They look completely disjointed and disconnected as a team. And for a team that's won 3 Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes, you think they'd be a little bit more organized and a little bit more, cohesive as a team at this point. There was always the fear that after you paid that gigantic salary to Patrick Mahomes that you wouldn't be able to afford any other good players around him. And it could be that maybe we're starting to see some of those cracks forming in the Chiefs team. And even though I really like Patrick Mahomes, I went to Texas Tech of all things. I have to support Patrick Mahomes, and I went to Texas Tech when Mahomes was there. The Eagles win 20-17, and the Chiefs dynasty may be in trouble. I had so much riding on the Sunday night football game between the Falcons and the Vikings this week. I needed JJ McCarthy to ride the momentum of the victory against the Bears and come out slinging the rock, getting that ball to Justin Jefferson as much as possible this week to help my fantasy team win. On the other side of the ball, I had Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London, all 3 of which had really bad games in what I'm calling this week's absolute worst game of the week. Both JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix looked afraid to throw the ball all game long. I fell asleep watching the game. In fact, there were multiple times I found myself being on my phone rather than watching the game, and then I completely forgot there was a football game happening in front of me. I'm not sure if that happened to any of you who watched the game, but it was an absolute bore of a game to watch. The game looks like the Falcons absolutely dominated the whole thing, which they sort of did, but their offense did basically nothing for the entirety of the game, and you can thank Romo, your new kicker, for basically all the points you scored the entire game. He scored 16 of the 22 points in the game for you guys. So my Falcons MVP and game ball recipient is Romo the kicker. And of course, after this game now, JJ McCarthy is being reported to have an ankle injury. He's going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks, which is probably the best thing that could have happened to the Vikings this year, and they'll get to see if Carson Wentz has a little bit more magic left in him. Please throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. Please throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. Did JJ McCarthy really sprain his ankle, or did he sprain his ego? Because right now it's looking like JJ has no idea how to be a quarterback at this level of football. And Penix didn't play much better on the other side either. After I praised him in week 1 for a great week, he came out completely flat in week 2 and looked like he was scared to throw the football. Either way, the Falcons won this absolute snooze fest in a game that required drinking copious amounts of alcohol to find enjoyable in any way. Baker Mayfield still has that dog in him. Yes. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ended up winning another close game. It came down to the wire between them and the Texans in a game that looked so bad that the Texans got booed out of their own stadium. The boos did go down a little bit as Nick Chubb had a rushing touchdown late in the game, but it was hard to tell if the fans were booing CJ Stroud or the horrible offensive play calling by the offensive coordinator. Either way, even though Baker Mayfield nearly had his MCL and meniscus torn out of socket, he still led his team down with one of the most impressive victories I've ever seen of his career, and big time Baker's looking like the quarterback that you want to pick on a final game winning drive. He's done this numerous times in his career, and every time he does it, it's just a giant middle finger to the Cleveland Browns, and that is something that will always make me happy. The Buccaneers win 20-19 over the Texans. Our final game of the week was kind of a dud to end the week off. The Chargers versus the Raiders in Las Vegas. The Chargers really didn't have to try very hard to win in this game. Geno Smith on the Raiders side of the ball threw 3 interceptions and no touchdowns, and Ashton Jeanty had a couple of good runs, but kind of looking like he's a little bit of a bust too so far. I'm sorry to tell you, Raiders fans, he could still prove me wrong. He definitely looks better than my pick, Omarion Hampton, on my fantasy team, who never gets to touch the ball hardly, but when he does, you better believe he's gonna fumble it away. Justin Herbert led his team in passing and rushing this week with 31 yards on the ground, and the Chargers cruised to an easy win in week 2 of the season to move to 2-0 this year and the top of the AFC West. That is my recap of week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. Let me know what your favorite part of the week was in the comments down below. We got a new 4th subscriber on the channel. Thank you so much to the 4th person that subscribed to this channel. The gang's all here. Are you gonna be the person that makes it 5 subscribers? Come on, hit the button right down there. Hit the subscribe button. It's right down there at the bottom of the screen, right there underneath the video. I'm a new sports channel, not to copy other sports channels. I'm here to put my own twist on football, with my own football recaps of every week of the season, including a recap of the Cardinals game every single week, since I am an Arizona Cardinals fan. So if you're a Cardinals fan, definitely stick around. If you're just an NFL fan too, I do these weekly NFL recaps every single week. So you can look forward to seeing that every single week of the football season, plus sometimes a bonus video here and there. So subscribe down below if you want to hang out with me, and if you're interested in Arizona sports more specifically, we'll be talking about Arizona sports all year long on this channel, even after the football season ends. Thank you so much for watching this week 2 recap of the NFL season. I'll see you very soon with my picks for week 3. Until then, it is KindaAskewSports, and my name is Ryan, and I'm signing out this week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.